right. All right, welcome. This is a special holiday week class. I figured we could all use some restorative yoga. And we had kind of I think we have a 5 Friday month. So next week will also be restorative classes for Monday. Friday's a holiday again. So just watch the schedule. I'm not sure how I'm gonna work with it, but we'll have some sort of a special class, maybe another restorative class. So you'll need a couple blocks today. You'll need a bolster if you own one, a strap, and some blankets. And that should be it. So we're gonna start. It's a 1-hour class, by the way. So we're gonna start seated. And just take a moment to arrange and adjust your seated position, taking the least dominant cross-legged position that you have. And then just taking some time, you can rotate the flesh of the thighs, rolling the inner thighs down, lifting the outer thighs up. And just start to play with the weight bearing over the sitting bones until it becomes more balanced and kind of centralized over the centers of each sitting bone. Inviting your legs to release and settle. Taking support if you need to help the legs release and settle. And then just inviting a sense of lightness to the torso that does not uproot the foundation you've established. And when you find kind of matching qualities of foundation and lightness, then join your hands together in front of your heart. Close your eyes, look down towards your cheeks and heart. And just begin to settle into your breathing. And just showing up as a witness. Giving the brain a more passive role in this class. So the idea behind yoga, and especially with restorative yoga, is that we consider the body very kind of sluggish and the brain hyperactive just in general. And so we give the body something to do so that we bring the body out of its more sluggish kind of tendencies. And this in turn allows the brain to become less active. And in this way, we find a sattvic state, which is a balanced state of body-mind relationship. And so even in restorative practice, we're going to give the body just enough activity so that the mind has a good opportunity to settle. So even just sitting here, we all know what it feels like to sit in a passive way. This is a more active way to sit, and you're giving your body something to do so that the brain can start to rest. In fact, the whole family of yoga asana, yoga poses, was designed to help us sit, to help us meditate. Because sitting is considered quite difficult for an extended period of time. As you're ready, just bowing towards your heart, inviting the practice to be heart guided rather than mind guided. And when you're ready, raise your head, release your hands, let your eyes blink open. And welcome. So we're going to start our practice with the 6 actions of the spine. From there, we'll do a series of forward bends, and then from there, we'll do a series of back bends. And then from there, we'll do some breathing and shavasana. So we're going to start on our backs for lateral movement of the spine for banana asana. So if you need some head support, take a blanket. Just make sure it's minimal, that you're not overly propping your head. We want to keep the neck long and the chin and forehead relatively level. And you'll just begin in kind of a Supta Tadasana, so just a kind of a straight alignment. And beginning with your arms, once you're down on the floor, you can invite your arms to extend overhead. And then just bind your hands, take the familiar interlock for this side, bind your hands together, interlock your hands. Try to fully extend your arms. And then we'll shift the hands to the left. And then we'll shift our left foot to the left, and then right foot follows, and then right foot lifts and stacks right ankle over left. And you might feel your right sacrum just kind of peeling away from the floor. So just attempt to keep your lower back really evenly pressing into the floor. We're not supposed to be rotating the spine. This is just some kind of crescent moon shape movement for the spine. And you'll find this big opportunity for the right side body to elongate. And if you don't sense that, you can just start to play with the hands and the feet coming farther to the left. As you practice today, be very attentive to your breath staying smooth and steady. The breath can be a really great tool for the mind to focus upon. You're going to stay about 4 more breaths here. Slow, steady inhalation, slow, steady exhalation. This class is called A Gift to Be Simple, just celebrating the simplicity of just being, not doing. And just go gently as you start to make your way back to center. You might start with the hands first. You might uncross your feet next and slide the legs to center. And just change out the hands to your less favored interlocking position. And then slide your hands to the right. Slide your right foot to the right, following with the left foot, and then picking up the left foot, crossing left ankle over right. Try to re-flatten the sacrum against the floor. And make sure there's enough interest here. So if the mind is bored, it will wander. Again, we're talking about bringing that tamastic, which is that inert, sluggish energy that we all carry in the body. Just kind of raising the level of effort enough that the brain can then similarly quiet down. Using our body to influence the brain. And as you need more, you can just keep making your way farther to the right with the hands and feet. And hopefully you are in a quiet space this morning and you're able to just allow yourself to be present. From the moment we're born to the moment we die, the breath is with us, but how much of that time are we aware of the breathing? We're going to start to gently kind of move back to center. So as you're able to move the hands, unstack your feet, re-extend your legs evenly. You can separate your hands. Just take a moment reaching out through the feet and the fingertips in Supta Tadasana. And now we'll set up for the 4 other actions of the spine. So you're going to want to move to your side and then come up to seated. We're going to start with twisting action first. So if you have a bolster, great. You can use the bolster off to the right-sided hip, vertically running from the right-sided hip. If you don't have a bolster, you can use your blocks and kind of put them in a line, in a column, And then put a blanket or two over that to kind of fashion yourself a bolster. And then sitting upright, you can start to turn to the right. And then consider keeping some length between kind of the pelvic bowl and the lower ribs as you bring your torso onto that creation that you've built. And then aligning your left cheek onto the bolster, or if it's uncomfortable, take the right cheek. And with twisting, the body doesn't settle in all at once. It's very incremental. And you can encourage the twist. You can support the twist by really tapping into the surrendered legs. If the legs are resistant or holding back, the spine will also feel that and not want to be as supple. With the pressure of the front body, we get the breath to really move into the upper back ribs. Just kind of sense your own breath like a fountainhead climbing up the torso, but also spreading in that expansive way across the torso and the back body. And 3 more full breaths here, watching your breath, surrendering your legs. We're going to be turning and facing this setup for child's pose. So you can kind of bring some weight into your hands to help you rise up a little bit with the torso. You may not have to come up all the way. You're going to try to separate the knees onto your mat, kind of around the setup. And then you can sit back for child's pose. And we really want the setup to fit kind of all under the negative space between your chest and your belly and the floor. And you might want to rest on your cheek rather than your forehead so that your nose can be free and clear. And again, we have contact to the front side, so we get the breath kind of invited to move into the back body. So it's an opportunity for the breath to move into an area that otherwise it might not. And let this pose really soothe your nervous system, your brain, your mind. As you hold the pose, let your attention wander around the body. Try to locate areas that might be activated that may not need to be activated. Maybe your hands are gripping for no reason. Maybe your forehead is tense. Maybe the shoulders aren't quite settled. Move to the other cheek so that both sides of the cervical spine can rotate. With the next and last few exhalations, invite the sacrum away from the skull. Start to lift your head and use your hands against the floor to bring yourself up. You can start to move into the other side of the twist. So the left hip will be against the end of the bolster. The legs will be off to the right. I'm going to carry my setup so that I can keep facing you guys. You're welcome to do the same or just turn away from the camera for this side. But again, you want to start in a kind of upright position to twist towards the bolster setup. And then try to keep a sense of spaciousness between the rib cage and the pelvis as you spread yourself over that setup, attempting to land your right cheek. And again, you can modify with left cheek. You can always raise the height of that cheek support if you need it higher. Remember to pay attention to the legs and how settled they feel. Really surrender the heaviness of the legs. Three more breaths. When you're ready to inhale, just use the in-breath to help you up again. And you'll turn to place your back against the setup for reclining bound angle pose. And make sure to give your legs any support you need. You can tuck blankets under your hips or blocks under your knees if you need. And you're going to come back on that setup so that your chest is really lifted and your head is tilted toward the chest, resting on the backs of the hands. So we don't really want to have propping in the lower back as much as we want it under the chest, behind the chest. And once you've set yourself up, you should be able to become very passive. And the body is held open in this way, and the breath again is invited into new territory in the body because of the shape that you're in. And just let your attention rove throughout the body. Maybe the groins are somewhat constricted. Maybe the hips are a little reluctant. Maybe there's tension in the chest and shoulders that aren't allowing the shoulders to release as much as they could. And notice how gravity is working to our advantage, helping us extend our exhalations, sinking the belly into the pelvic bowl. The idea that BKS Iyengar offered about breath, if there were a piece of tissue under the nose, when the breath is smooth and we're breathing in a very balanced, quiet way, the tissue would not be shaking on the in-breath or the out-breath. Just a couple more fully surrendered exhalations. You can start to move your knees together and then just carry your weight to one side to help you roll off the setup. And we're going to come into Salamba, which means supported, Adho Konasana, downward facing dog. I like to use a block and a blanket, but you might need more height. It depends really at what you need. So you can just kind of create a guess, building up just a little bit of a padded surface for the head. And you'll kind of tabletop over that setup, turning the toes under, and on an exhale, extending the legs. So this is where you'll discover if you need to stack more height. You can slide your hands farther ahead, but what you don't want to do is bend your elbows for the head to touch. So feel free to open the distance between the hands and feet, but don't distort the pose just to get the head down. Instead, build up the height. And it should be enough height, but it also, we don't want too much. We want the neck to feel like it can really lengthen in its own time. And rather than pushing the crown into the props, we want to feel almost like we're moving through the props. Try to float the belly toward kind of spreading it, that lateral space we talked about last week, across the lower back. Feel the toes evenly pressing down into the floor. Keep actively drawing your hips away from your wrists. This will support the weight bearing you're doing with the wrists, with the shoulders. Lengthen from the wrists through the hips. And then imagine all that extension running down the other side, letting the legs start to extend, letting the heels descend. Five more breaths, and if you need to leave early, you can walk into a ragdoll, a standing ragdoll. And an inhale, carry some weight into your hands, just start to tiptoe the feet toward the wrists. And we're going to come into supported Uttanasana now. This is our series of forward bends. We're going to do them all with head support. So the setup I like for this one, and again, this might need to be customized differently to your needs, but I do this T block setup, and a chair seat works well if this is not going to work for you. You could try this, but then it gets a little unstable. So a chair seat would be better probably than two stacked blocks on their highest dimensions. So, but then I like to put a little blanket there to make it softer. My feet are going to open up hip distance. I'm going to kind of check in to see if I've got it right. Again, you don't want to have to kind of distort the pose. Your legs might need to bend no matter what. We don't want to bend the knees just to meet the pose. So if that's the case, you want your straightest legs and whatever height you need. It might need an additional blanket. So you're going to get the top of the head supported. And if you're like me and you end up with your hands kind of excess arm length, flip to the palm up position so your shoulders are really going to settle. Otherwise, arms are dangling like empty coat sleeves. Do your best to find your straightest legs, but that might again mean you have a little bit of a bend in your knee. And your toes, of course, are in front of the heels. And again, we don't want to feel like we're jamming the head into the props. So make sure that there's a stream of energy coming through the crown into the props rather than that feeling that you're up against a wall. So you might need to adjust your props down at some point. So massaging the crown of the head in poses like these or in headstand is very detoxifying for the lymph system in the body. So it's a good kind of pressure you want to have there, a good amount of contact. Forward bends are really supportive. All of us have emotional fatigue, especially around the holidays, although maybe not as much this year. But these are really great series of poses when the kind of the psychic body is overwhelmed with emotion. Forward bends can really offset some of that. We're going to start to transition out of it by bending the knees, lifting the head. You can use your hands on your prop setup to help bring you up. And then come up and just join your legs and feet and stand in mountain pose. Trying to find a neutral lower back by moving the tailbone in, adjusting the shoulders above the hips. And now we'll do another forward bend, which is going to be Prosurito Tanasana. We'll do it Salamba style, meaning head supported. And you won't need as much height because you're spreading your feet, you're closer to the floor. So again, you'll just have to kind of see about what you're going to need. Maybe do a test run. And of course, you can adjust your props as you hold the pose and find more extension and expansion in your body. But make sure you have the alignment correct, that your big toes are on the same line, that your toes are sitting in front of the heels. The legs are activating so that your knees aren't knocking. So you're turning the inner thighs towards the outer thighs. You're gripping the floor with the outer feet, lifting the inner arches of your feet, and you haven't rolled over those small toes. So keep your small toes useful rather than kind of bulldozing them with the outer feet pressurized. Take the crown down, and again, place the hands in a way that the shoulders are invited to surrender. You'll be able to sense if you need to adjust your height down. It's as if the head has nowhere to go. About 3 more breaths here. Start to look forward, use your hands, and just heel toe walk your feet back together. Bring yourself up. You can set up a blanket you're gonna sit on. We'll do a few seated poses now. And have your strap nearby. We'll start with a seated twist. So we're going to be sitting with the right knee just kind of right in front of the right hip line. So your right thigh bone is just straight out in front of you. And your left heel is kind of intersecting with your left sitting bone. They're kind of in line as well. And then just put a block right behind you so that you have a little resting perch for your hand that's going to be behind you. The right hand will hold the left shin. Extend the left arm up. And on an exhale, you can turn to your left, placing that left hand down behind you. And you can keep grabbing that shin that you're holding, or you might, if you want to go a little deeper, if you sense you're ready for more, extend your right arm up and then drop the outer upper arm against the upper left thigh. In either position, you're attempting to spread the chest well to the left, attempting to keep good weight in your left sitting bone. And at this point, your chin should still just be floating above the sternum. And now just turning the head, completely looking back behind you. Keeping your head where it is, you're going to avert your eyes as well as you can to the right. Anecdotally, people have spoken about clearing sinus congestion with this move here. Just see how it feels. And then you're going to come out of it in reverse order. So bring your gaze back to neutral, bring your head back to neutral. And then you're going to inhale to follow the twist. And stack your right shin in front of your left shin. I meant to say left shin in front of right, I'm sorry. Left shin in front of right. So we're going to come into Gomukasana. So if you're able to go farther with the feet, with the legs, you can stack the left shin over the right. Or you could go even deeper and stack the left knee over the right. So there are options there, but we just want to feel anchored. So no matter what you're doing with the legs, make sure you feel anchored. And now the strap. So if you know you can do this without the strap, then no need for it. We're going to be working with the right arm being the top arm. And so if you're going to work with the strap, you'll take the strap in your hand and align your right elbow above your right shoulder. With your free left hand, just press down on the elbow, get the hand to drop down a little lower, and then keeping it low, also take that free hand and rotate or revolve the right arm. So the outer arm moves in, the inner arm moves out. You should feel your shoulder blade kind of moving out. And then we'll extend the left arm, thumb down. Keeping the upper arm really level with the floor. Swing the arm, see if you can catch the strap nice and high. And walk the hands together, or you're clasping your hands directly. So lengthen out the low back if it became arched. Pull your head into your top arm if the top arm's pushing your head forward. Close your eyes and look away from the brain and give attention to the lower half of the body, staying very anchored, very established. And let that really be what inspires the lightness, the extension, the expansion in the upper body. Go ahead and help yourself release your arms first. If your arms need a good break, if they're kind of tired, just take a Shavasana arm here. You might even tilt the pinkies up, the thumbs down to kind of rewind the arms or unwind the arms. And then we're going to carry that left leg out to the side and the right leg out to the side for Upavishta Konasana, just a short one. And this is just to kind of establish the kind of the equalized legs here. So Firm the legs to the floor. Make sure your kneecaps are looking up, your toes are looking up. You're right on top of your sitting bones, and you can place your hands right next to your hips behind you. Roll your shoulders back and actively press your legs into the floor. Contract just slightly at the pelvic floor. It shouldn't require any more effort than it takes your eyes to blink there. Just a little lift, shuttling the energy up the spine. Press the legs down into the floor. Look straight ahead. Just take a few breaths, lifting the sternum. Good. And now releasing that position. You can shake your legs out. We're going to come into the second side of the twist. So now the left knee will find its way in line with the left hip. The right foot heel is going to run in line with the right sitting bone. Right away, you feel an imbalance in sitting bone weight, so you're going to do your best to anchor back into the right sitting bone. And the left hand will hold the right shin. We'll raise the right arm up, and on an exhale, turn to the right and place the right hand on that block that's behind you. You might not need it, so just decide if you need it. What you don't want to see is that you're leaning back to touch down. So if you can do that on the floor with an upright spine, that's great. You might raise the left arm and drop the outer upper arm to the front thigh to get a kind of a deeper connection, so you can take the twist farther if your body is asking for that. So the chin is still above the sternum. We're directing the lighter right sitting bone back to the floor. We're feeling the chest starting to spread well to the right. And then when you sense it's time, you're going to look over the far shoulder, completing your twist right up to the brainstem. So we have a singular twist here. But then you're going to avert your gaze to the left and just notice what that feels like inside the head. And then taking those steps in reverse order, bringing the gaze back to neutral, the chin back above the chest, and then on an in-breath, lifting yourself out of the twist and setting up Gomukasana. So this time the right shin is in front of the left, or the right shin is on top of the left shin, or the right knee is above the left knee. And we'll be taking the left arm up as our top arm. So we're attempting to bring the elbow in line with the shoulder. We're going to use the right hand just to press down on the elbow to get that hand to drop in a little deeper, and also to revolve the arm. So rotating the outer upper arm in, inner upper arm out. And then extending that right arm out sideways, thumb down. Swing the arm. Catch the strap or hook the hands together. Take the elbow tips back, but keep the low back long. Take your head right over the spine, close the eyes, look down. And just let the attention settle into the lower half of the body. So the tendency is for the shoulders to want to internally rotate, so just keep finding that opening of the shoulders revolving back to keep the chest really spread, the sternum supported and lifted. Inner tips of the shoulder blades inserting toward the chest. Good. Now let your eyes blink open. Release your arms. Feel free to extend the arms like your fingertips are little sprinklers pointed toward the floor to relieve the arms. And then we'll come back to Upavishta Konasana, just taking the legs out wide, firming the feet to the floor. Good. Pressing the hands down Just squeezing your thigh muscles, reaching out through the balls of the feet, the heels, the pads of the toes. And now we're going to be coming onto the back, our backs. And you'll want to have, before you come down, you're going to want to make a loop with your strap. I'll tell you about the size in a moment. But first, just kind of floss the strap out so there's no twists. And then you're going to make a loop. Eventually, it's going to be around the big toes. So you're going to put a loop around your big toes, and when your legs are in front of you, spread out, you just want to see that your feet are just slightly wider than your hips. That's the perfect circumference for you. So you're hooking the big toes only with your loop. So feel free to keep the loop on you for bridge pose. Otherwise, you can put it on later. It's not really necessary for bridge pose, but we are going to use it when we extend our legs from bridge pose. So it really depends on what's going to be less awkward. Just putting it on now, leaving it there versus putting it on after bridge pose. I'm going to leave mine on. So we're going to use a block. You're going to come onto your back. Knees will bend. Feet come onto the floor and your toes are in line with your heels, of course. And then you're going to prop your lower back with a horizontal, probably low or medium height of your block, of your block. So you're coming into bridge pose here. Your shins should be pretty much in vertical alignment, your heels in line with your knees. And then you're going to do your best to kind of roll your outer upper arms down to bring the backs of the hands onto the floor, and try not to let your arms go as wide as they want to go. So containing the wrists a little bit is going to help you broaden the shoulder girdle. And then rock your head enough times that you feel the length of the neck coming closer to the floor. You feel the chin coming closer to the chest. And take the tailbone toward the ceiling. You might sense the tailbone curling toward the floor. So just taking the tailbone into the soft tissue of the body up toward the ceiling. Feeling the lift and spread of your chest here. Your gaze is toward your cheeks. Try not to hold any unnecessary hardness in your face. And now we're going to transition into extended legs. And if your low back is telling you that's not wise, you're going to stay here. And this is where the strap goes around the big toes if it isn't there already. You can start to wiggle your feet out. And once the legs are extended, that toe strap is containing the legs from going splaying wide, which of course keeps our legs in good alignment, and it keeps our sacral band broad. Your kneecaps are pointing straight to the ceiling. And you're doing your best to keep the tailbone moving into the body and toward the ceiling. So we want to have enough effort, but make sure it's not too much, that you're not feeling rigid. Basically, essentially giving the mind a bone. Something to do, some activity, which the mind loves. The body is in an effort state, pulling it out of its tamasic state, and helping the mind come out of its rajasic state, which is overworked, to become more balanced and settled and quiet. So you know you're doing it well if you're feeling present. Now we're going to help ourselves unhook our feet. Step the feet to the floor and turn your block on its lowest level. And then picking the feet up and letting the thighs drop toward the chest. Extending your arms overhead. Extending your legs up. And just a few moments here in this freestanding version of Viparita Karani, legs up the wall pose. We don't want to peel the lower sacrum away from the block, so keep the sacrum resting fully on the block. Taking the last few moments here with hands on your belly now. Stacking the legs in space in a way that requires least effort from the body. Go ahead and fold the legs again and step the feet down. And then help yourself off of your block. And then step your feet wide, and you're just going to sweep the legs, the knees to one side and the head to the other, windshield wipering the legs. But try to keep the feet wide throughout and just rocking on the inner and outer feet. The knees go one way, the head goes in the other. And after a few more twists, you'll find your way back to center. And we're just going to massage the lower back, picking up the feet one more time, cupping the knees with your hands, and then just lending the dexterity of your hands to the rotation of that sacrum on the floor, just revolving it, massaging it. And exploring both directions. So once you get through a few rotations in one direction, take a moment to reverse, making small circles and bigger ones so that you're really touching the whole bony plate. And then taking a moment to hug the legs in, tuck the chin toward the chest, taking a reclining child's pose. And then let your feet come down. We're going to set up for a pranayama practice. Mostly pranayama supports are usually just for the spine. They're not as wide as supports we use for asana. So there's many ways to create pranayama supports, but just for today, since this is a shorter pranayama, you can just fold a narrow blanket so that it will run with your spine. And if you have an additional blanket, you're going to make a head support. So it'll kind of look like a T shape. And once you lie down, you'll notice if you need a little bit more under the head, you can kind of adjust it from reclining. So the pranayama supports should really only start at the rib cage. They don't need to be any lower. And the head height should be enough that your chin is really kind of forced down towards the chest. So it's more significant than we use for asana. And you can double up that blanket if you need to get the height you need. And then once you've kind of set that up, make sure to lift your butt and kind of pull the flesh of the butt away from the lower back. And the feet are wider than the hips, the feet are flopping out. If you're cold, make sure to cover up so that you're not distracted by feeling cold. You want to be on the backs of the hands with the chest lifted. And you're just going to begin with eyes closed. You might use an eye pillow if you have trouble keeping your eyes closed. You're just going to begin by noticing what breath is there. We can't always hear our breath, but what we can do is listen for the breath. In other words, make the ears receptive. The ears are the only sense organ in pranayama that we really want to heighten. The rest are becoming more subdued. We're going to practice Ujjayi 2 and then Viloma, exhale. So first, just Ujjayi 2 is emphasizing exhalation with a very subtle constriction of the throat. It's the same muscle you use to clear your throat, except it's a lot more subtle than that action. And when you practice Ujjayi breathing, you might have a better chance of hearing your breathing. When we can hear the breathing, we can listen for that smoothness. Should sound like there's a leak in a valve. So when you're ready to begin, just come into a full cycle of the Ujjayi 1 breath of observation. And take another normal in-breath. And then just one Ujjayi breath out, followed by a complete cycle of easy breathing. Try not to harden the abdomen as you're exhaling. Thinking about the idea of the Kleenex not shaking under the nose. And we want to try to really have a thorough exhalation, all the breath out. Pranayama is meant to quiet the brain. It's only taught once asana has been mastered. A lot of teachers I know only teach Ujjayi because the other pranayamas are considered more complicated. So that being said, if you are comfortable with Ujjayi and you want to also incorporate Viloma, we're going to still be working with Ujjayi exhale, but you're going to have 3 parts of your exhale, which means you're going to have 2 pauses. So I'll guide us through one cycle here. Complete breath in and out. Another easy breath in. And then you're going to exhale a third of the breath, pause. Another third of the breath, pause. And the final third. Easy breath in, easy breath out. You might need to have an extra cycle of easy breathing. So you're really just watching yourself in pranayama. It's about the mind settling. If the mind is agitated, if the breath becomes foreign or lost, come back to Ujjayi 1. So you're welcome to do a few more cycles on your own of Ujjayi 1, Ujjayi 2 exhalation, or Ujjayi 2 also with Viloma, where you're breaking up the exhale into thirds. Finding your way back to Ujjayi 1 and just taking the seat of the passive witness. We're going to try to least disturb the body, the mind, as you roll to a side and adjust yourself off the pranayama supports. Feel free to keep head support. Feel free to cover up if you feel like you're getting cold. We have a 3-minute shavasana. And just let the effects of pranayama carry over. Taking as much time as you need to adjust the physical body into position. You're setting yourself up for full body surrender, so using any support you need to create that effect. No effort required here. No physical effort. No effort with breathing. No effort trying to control the thoughts. From one of my very favorite books, The Radiance Sutras by Lauren Roach. Set your mind free to wander anywhere it wants. Think any thought, ride any wave, surge in any direction. The instant a thought springs up, abandon it and move on. Don't let the mind rest anywhere. In this way, gain entry to the bliss of the silent depths beneath the surf. Feel the softness of the face, maybe an inner smile. The body breathing on its own. In alignment with eternal presence. Letting the exhale carry away with it anything no longer serving you. And may your gift to others this holiday season be a gift of your presence. Let yourself just enjoy a deep cleansing breath. Maybe another one. Inviting fingers and toes to wiggle, wrists and ankles to rotate, knees and elbows to bend. Letting hands touch your belly and soles of the feet touch the floor. Gently, slowly bring yourself to one side. And from there, find your way to seated. And sealing the hands together in front of the heart. Just slightly lift the corners of the mouth, inviting a sense of gratitude into your heart. Let's take a deep breath in through the nose and let it go. From the place within me that I know to be divine, I honor that place within each of you. Namaste. Right. Thanks for being here, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon. I'll send the schedule out as soon as I know what's happening next week. Happy holidays. Bye, you guys.